Okay, good morning and welcome to the Policy Committee meeting on March 19th. All members are here, so I call to order. I need approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, thank you. Next, I need approval of the February 20th open session minutes.
So
Motion to-
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. 4-0. Next up is policy for second review.
Good morning, everyone. The first policy we have for second review is policy 3-06, staff student relations. This policy was reviewed in this committee and in February and by the board in March. There's been no stakeholder input since that time, and staff would request that this go for approval at the April meeting. If you recall, the revisions to this policy were for statutory changes.
Should we just wait till the end of policies for second review and then recommend approval in mass?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay, the next one that we have is policy 4-05, immunization and health requirements for school admission. This policy was also reviewed by the committee in February and the board in March, and there's been no stakeholder input since that time. These revisions were also for statutory purposes, and staff would request that this go to the board for approval at the April meeting. Any questions on that one?
No questions.
No.
Okay, I'll keep moving then. 413 policy 413 student assignment is the next one. This also was reviewed by the committee in February and the board in March. There have been no stakeholder input since that time, and then staff would request this go for approval at the April meeting. And like the others, the policy changes were for statutory purposes. All right, we'll move to 5-03, counseling. This was reviewed by the committee in February and the board in March. The changes were for statutory purposes and also to fill in some blanks that we had in our policy. We've had no stakeholder input since that meeting, and staff would request that this go to the board for approval at the April meeting. All right. The next one is policy 5-24, school closing for elections. This policy was reviewed by the board in February, or the committee in February and the board in March. And the revisions to this were based on a request of the Board of Elections to be closed on election day. And we have obviously incorporated that into next year's calendar already. There's been no stakeholder input since that time, and staff would request that this go for approval at the April meeting.
So last time I asked about to require it to be closed instead of
I think
May.
we talked about May. Yes, we can change that language. Say instead of may, say must be closed or shall be closed.
Yes, shall.
Okay.
Well, wait. Election day. So right now we have a runoff, and
Yeah, that's technically an election day
yeah, okay, so leave it with May. Okay.
because we don't know which one will be polling places.
Yes, exactly. They're trying to combine.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
So we'll leave this language at May then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The last policy for second review is a proposed new policy on integrity and civility. And this policy was reviewed in the committee in February and in March by the board. There's been no stakeholder input. And if you recall, the revisions to this policy were to address cheating and plagiarism, especially through the use of new technology like AI. And the staff would request that this go to the board for approval at the April meeting. Those are all of the policies for second review.
On that integrity and civility,
Okay.
you think we
So-
nailed everything on that?
Yes.
Yes, staff feels like we need that.
No,
Yeah.
nailed everything on it.
Oh yes, I think we hit everything that we need. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need a
Good job with the
motion
change.
to send
Thank you.
the
Thank you,
policies for
Michelle, for
second
that.
review. What?
Thank you, Michelle, for that.
I'll make a motion. We recommend policy 3-06, 4-05, 4-13, 5-03, 5-24, and the new policy on civility and integrity. We recommend to the full board for final approval.
So move.
Is that a second?
Yes.
Well,
Gary?
ma'am.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is policies for first review.
Okay, the first two policies, policy 1-13, public hearings. The revisions proposed for this policy are to address the online portal for signing up for public comments and to fix the way that people do that so that it's clear, and that staff would recommend that this go for first review at the April meeting.
Okay, so
What was looked at as unclear.
Right. That's what I was going to ask.
The prior policy did not have our public comments portal in there, and so this makes sure people know how to sign in to sign up for public comments and to sign up to be on the agenda for the public hearing.
okay.
The
Thanks so
green
much.
stuff is new and the
Yeah.
red stuff is crossed out.
Oh, we're aware of the color coding. I was just asking her what was unclear.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it didn't have the portal information in there.
Thank you.
Folks are still allowed to sign up when they show up at the meeting. It's not taking away any, or it's not adding any restriction to public comments.
No, they can sign up until the time call the meeting.
No
Okay,
questions.
I wonder how much of that is strategy. I've been thinking about that these last couple of times. How much of that is strategy, just almost to not let someone know who's going to sign up, where because clearly we've been real good at folks signing up on the portal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on policy 1-13?
No. I assume we'll group these together and do approval in mass, just like we did on the
Okay,
previous section.
okay, the
Next.
next one, at 1-23, public records. This is a similar reason that we're bringing this to you. The board adopted an online portal to make public records requests. And so this was, is being recommended to direct people to the right place for signing or for requesting public records. It also more clearly identifies the staff that are in charge of handling public records requests.
Excellent. No questions.
Okay.
okay,
Policy 3-05A, use of tobacco products. The revisions to this policy are being proposed to address changes in the way that the district does business. We are increasing focus on vaping and electronic cigarettes, so that is clearly delineated in this policy. Additionally, we have transitioned from the adult cessation program to recommending folks to our employee assistance program. So we've taken that language out since the adult cessation program no longer exists.
Okay.
And staff would recommend that this go for review at the April meeting.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Would it be safe? Not safe. I think we need to add marijuana into that. Using electronic cigarettes, vaping.
is that in a different one for
Yeah,
drugs?
Yeah, this is
We do
tobacco.
have a drug-free workplace policy as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
So I think it's covered there. I will
Okay.
pull that just to make sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, you might want to look at that, Michelle, because these days there are all kinds of gummies that don't necessarily have THC. They have different varieties. So that has expanded as well. So yes, I would agree with John. We might want to look at that.
Yep, I will pull that policy. And if there's any revisions that need to be made, I will bring that to the next committee meeting. The next up for review is 3-16, and this is actually administrative guidelines as opposed to policy, and it's types of leave. And this there's some language added that we didn't have in the very beginning of this policy. And then we have added paid parental leave, which is new to districts. It started in the summer. And then also we added language regarding the episode of violence leave, which we did not have in our policy. And then clarified some other language regarding, since we have moved leave benefits and compensation down to finance, we changed the language that talked about the assistant superintendent of human resources and changed that to the CFO, so that we have realigned based on the district's realignment.
Okay.
And staff would like for this to go for its review at the April meeting.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The 10 weeks advance written notice for paid parental leave. Let's say a sudden illness of a child, I mean, a serious illness, and they obviously don't have 10 weeks advanced written notice. Is there some type of workaround for that?
Yeah, and the paid parental leave is when you have a baby or adopt a baby. So
Okay.
it is like maternity, paternity, that type of leave. And it does say when it's reasonably possible to do so.
Reasonably possible. Okay.
Yeah. So that there are, obviously times. And then when it's not possible, the employee should provide as much as possible under the circumstances. Obviously people, adoption schedules change. People go into labor early. So there are obviously caveats to address that.
Okay. And then the episode of violence leave, we're going to pay full salary. Now, I'm assuming if someone is injured in a episode of violence, that would be a workers' compensation claim, which will provide 2/3 of salary, but that is not taxable.
Yes, workers' comp is also an option. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that instead of filing a work comp claim, they could receive direct compensation, or that we're going to make them whole on top of any other workers' compensation? Or is this just meant to fill the gap between, what was it, used to be 2 weeks before, or 1 week before workers' compensation kicks in?
I'll need to get some more clarification from Shauna on how the mechanics of it work. This is a statutory right that folks have in these situations. And it may be in lieu of workers' comp, since it's a higher rate, but then you're right, taxable income versus non-taxable. Who knows which is
And it also says a full salary of injury disability arose from the episode of violence and the employee did not participate in or provoke the violence. Well, if they didn't participate in it, how'd they get hurt?
I think the participation, that means I wasn't active. I'm just the victim. I wasn't.
Okay, let me give you a scenario. A teacher's pulling two kids are fighting. A teacher is pulling one kid away to stop the fight, or steps in the middle of it, and actually something happens. Is that considered participating, since you're trying to, you're actively trying to stop what's going on?
No, that would not be. It would be if a student hits me and I hit them back. That would be participating.
All right, great. Well, not great, but that answers my question.
Right.
Okay, the last one, I'm going to take these two together since they're companion policies. It's policy 418, do not resuscitate, and then a proposed new policy, do not resuscitate for employees. The nurses brought it to my attention that our do not resuscitate policy just dealt with students who had DNRs, and that they felt that we needed to address a situation where an employee might bring a DNR to us and ask that we not, or that we not engage in any life-saving activities. And at the time when we addressed the do not resuscitate policy 418, it was the position of the board that we did not want to have our staff sitting back when a student was in crisis. And so we were taking the same position when employees are in a medical crisis, and that when EMTs come or other medical professionals, that they can address the DNR, but that we were not going to handle it that way when it was our staff dealing with the situation.
I think
And
that's
so-
a smooth, because I don't know how, if somebody keels over, how in the world are you gonna know if they've got a DNR?
Correct. And then it's just the idea of having our students observe staff just standing there. I think that that's something that we don't want, and our medical staff do not want to be a part of, I think. And at least some of them. So we would ask that this go for board for first review at the April meeting, both of these. I think we lost Mr. Reverend Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, technology.
Okay. Well, we still,
Lost them.
I'm gonna make a motion to recommend to the full board for first review policy revision on 113, 123, policy 3.5A, 3-16, 4-18, and proposed new policies do not resuscitate. I'll make a motion we recommend to the full board for first review.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yo, thank you. Okay. So our next meeting is April 16th at 8 o'clock via Zoom. And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.